What's going on? This is Zach Adelstein here with DFS Army, and today I'm here with Aaron Friedman, and we're going to be going over the Week 3 college football main slate on DraftKings. Had a really good first 2 weeks here at DFS Army. Actually had a great week in the NFL. We won the Millie over on DraftKings. Everything's going great over here. You need to jump right in, get along with us. I'm always doing the DraftKings sheets for college football here, and Aaron's helping over at doing all the FanDuel sheets. We're both in our Discord all day. How was your week, Aaron? How was your week too?
It was good. It was interesting just learning more about the teams and the players, and I'm really looking forward to learning more about a bunch of teams, like seeing Nebraska without Frost, seeing Purdue in another close game, which should be a close game. So there's a lot of good spots here on this slate.
Yeah, I agree. Not as many big name games, maybe. Hopefully, you get a little bit more predictability. But also, I think there's some fun things that can happen. Some conference play starting, and yeah, let's jump right in. First game we're at here is Georgia, South Carolina. It's a 52-point total with Georgia favored by 24 points. A few places I want to hit here, not a ton, I don't think, in this game. Stetson Bennett is at a decent price here. They finally brought him down from his outlandish like 9,500 past couple weeks. The 7,300 I think is fair. He has over 300 yards passing in 4 of the last 5 games, which actually really surprised me. He has really had a decent streak for a quarterback that really goes under the radar. That being said, I still don't love this spot. I think he's a decent GPP play because I don't think many people own him because I think he gets overlooked a lot. But this is a place I might look at him a little bit in GPPs. Over running back, I don't love rostering any of these Georgia running backs usually, but McIntosh has been the leader in target so far in the year for the team. They did have a blowout last week, so pulled some of their starters. But I still think if they're going to target him plenty, that he is in play every week in this PPR format. If he gets 5 or 6 targets and 10 carries, that's 16 touches on the week is 16 touches. And then the other place I kind of am looking at for a mid-price guy is Marshawn Lloyd. Talked about him last week a little bit. Had another decent week. Didn't do anything huge, but he catches. They get him involved a lot. Has a decent amount of target. I don't hate him for GPPs. I don't think he will carry much ownership at all. Don't love him, but don't hate him either. Over at wide receiver, there isn't really a ton I like here. Adonai Mitchell is possibly out, which could lead to more targets. They spread it out so much. McConkey had that huge week 1. It was all on 4 targets. Bowers can go off any week, but he's priced up so high where he's, you can't own too much of him, and he's GPP only. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. What are you looking at, Aaron?
Yeah, I agree on Bennett. He's the price point makes him definitely pretty viable, and I also like this game's on both sites, and I like Lloyd a lot at running back. I think he's scored both games, which is important for FanDuel. So he's a good play for me. I mean, even though it's Georgia, South Carolina is still implied for, I think, around 15 points. So there's still scoring here. And then at receiver, Antwain Wells, he's been pretty good for South Carolina. And I'm not touching Rattler, so this is an interesting guy. He's pretty cheap here, so I'll probably have him in my receiver pool on both sites.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. There's some decent price receivers, but I think he's definitely down there. It's someone you can get in for sure. So yeah, moving on to a game you were talking about earlier, Oklahoma, Nebraska. Scott Frost got fired this week, so we get to see the post Scott Frost era start here. I still like this offense. I think the offense has been decent for Nebraska. The defense has really been struggling. Whipple's had them moving decently. And that being said, I like both quarterbacks in this game. Gabriel a little bit less just because he hasn't had to do much, and I want to see what this offense turns into. It seems like they really want to be balanced. They don't want to let him air it out a ton. If that's the case, it's fine. But at this price tag, he's just way too expensive for me. Casey Thompson is a good price here for somebody that had 3 rushing touchdowns and a passing touchdown last week. He is the offense. He's making everything run. He's going to have to put up a ton here. And I really like him here. I don't know that I would push him for cash just because there's other options around this price I like more and I think are safer. But I think he's a great GPP play under 7K. Going to running back, I'm trying to figure out what Oklahoma's doing. Week 1 in a little bit closer game. Eric Gray had, I believe, 16 carries. Last week he didn't have as many, but they pulled most of their starters a lot earlier. I don't think Nebraska has a great defense like we talked about. And if he's going to have, 14 to 16 plus carries a game, I think he's a nice play. I don't love this price either. But he will be in my GPP pool just depending on, I think he could have a big breakout game if he falls into the end zone a few times. Not touching anyone for Nebraska here, and the running backs, they just rotate way too much. And I think this is Oklahoma defense is pretty good. Going over to wide receiver, a few plays. Marvin Mims is starting to turn into the guy I think we thought he was going to be last year. Getting plenty of targets, getting open, getting some nice value. That being said, I don't know how he got to almost 9,000 here.
Yeah.
I think if you take the contacts out, take the price tag out, I think he's a really nice play. But you put that price tag on, it's going to be really hard to roster him, especially once we get through the slate. There's not a ton of value at running back that is reliable. One place I really like here is Trey Palmer. He's too cheap. He is the focal point of this passing offense. They have 2. They played week 0. Nebraska did, so they have 2 games against FBS opponents this year. He has 22 targets on those games. I think he's going to get peppered here. They're going to be playing from behind, which they have not had to do this year, really. They've been in tight games, but I think this will be the first game they actually have to play from behind and try to mount a comeback. And I think he's going to get more targets than anyone possibly in this game. What are your thoughts here, Aaron?
Yeah, I like Thompson a lot. Gabriel, I feel like is hard. I agree with you. He's hard to evaluate just because they've had like 2 cupcake games so far. So it's hard to know how good he'll be in this offense. But I do like Eric Gray a lot. He's actually cheaper on FanDuel. So I think this, like, they used him a lot, and they use running back a lot when it's a competitive game. So I think especially on FanDuel, it's a good buy low spot for Eric Gray. Receiver, I agree on Trey Palmer. I think he's the leading target guy for them. I'm blanking on the other Isaiah Garcia, Castaneda. Forget, he must have fallen off.
Yeah, he's down here. He had that one big game against Northwestern, and
Yeah.
I don't think he's done much since then.
Yeah, but probably just Palmer in terms of the receivers in this game.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Marcus Washington has done a little bit, but he hasn't done a ton there. I think he's always a risk to go off when he's kind of a pump play for me. Moving on to
how much is Grant? I know they've used him a lot, but
he's at 6,200, and I just don't trust him against this front 7.
Fair enough.
I think he's fine. I just think, and I think it's going to be negative game script. I think it's going to be 14-0 at the end of the first quarter, if not like 7 minutes into the game, and they're just going to be coming from behind. Moving over to Purdue Syracuse, it's a game I love. It's kind of gone back and forth with a total between 59.5 and 60, and a pick'em game to Syracuse -1, depending on where you're looking. This was the game they took down the slate for and repriced everyone on Purdue. Originally, Aiden O'Connell was down in the 6,000s like he normally is. And for some reason, they priced him up to 7,500, which is a very fair price. And they didn't touch Garrett Schrader, who should probably be in the 8K range. Schrader is getting his 23, 25 passing attempts a game. He's going to get anywhere from 13 to 15 rushing attempts a game. And he is going to put up big fantasy scores. He is cash safe in this game. He is GPP safe. He's going to be high owned. at this price, but I think he is a smash play here. Um, just the way this offense runs through him, they are doing great things with him, and for some reason they won't price him up. Aiden O'Connell, again, this is a nice spot. He's priced appropriately, so it's harder to get on him, but I do think he's a nice GPP play. And I don't love him in cash because they haven't had to throw it as much as last year. They just haven't thrown it as much as last year when it's a close game. But week one, I mean, they threw it 58 times. So you had an awful efficiency rating, but they threw it 58 times, so they will put it up when they need to. Going over to running back. I know you'll talk about some stuff in a second. Sean Tucker is priced up, but I will place Sean Tucker 100 times out of 100 over Mims at the same price. I think most of my lineups will have either Schrader or Tucker in it. I think people will fade it just because he's way up at the top, and I think I think he's a great play. He has 20 plus rushes in each of the first two games. Has 11 targets on the season. They want to get him the ball a ton. Want to get him in the end zone, and I just think he's in a great spot. Wide receiver here is a little weird. Jones was sitting there. Chris Jones was down at 3,800. I made a lineup as soon as it came out. Loved the lineup, and they took the slate down and moved him to 8,000. Second, I believe, second or third highest receiver on this slate. That being said, I think he gets very low ownership here, and he has 29 targets through two games. I might play him a little bit in GPPs. Won't play him in cash, but in GPPs, I think he's a decent play because he will carry very little ownership as a Purdue wide receiver, and he could get peppered here in a game that's supposed to be very close. Outside of that, I know they've talked about wanting to get Tracy more involved. He's priced up a little bit, so I don't love it. And then just going through, there's several Purdue wide receivers you can get involved if you if you want to go that direction. Thompson's doubtful this week. I know they said he probably won't be in. Durham, they get involved sometimes. Sheffield, just several places I want to look around and probably will piece together parts of this game because I do want to be involved on this game. What are you looking at, Aaron?
Yeah, Schrader for sure. On FanDuel, he's really expensive. He may be QB2 over there in terms of pricing, so I'm trying to evaluate how much I like the spot on FanDuel. O'Connell's not a value anymore with his pricing. And then at running back, Tucker's awesome. We did recently get news that King Doru is out for this week, so it'll probably be pretty light on the Purdue backfield because they'll play Downing, Lewis, and Maccabee. So I think it's a tough spot at running back on the Purdue side. And then receiver, I don't think I'm going to get to Charlie Jones. I may look at, I think guys like Sheffield and Durham, you can run back with Schrader, and I like that. And then Jackson on the other side for Syracuse, he's pretty solid.
Yeah, I like that. I think this is a game you really want to have a piece of in a lot of your lineups. I think it could blow out for sure. Not blow out. It shouldn't blow up for sure. Have a big shootout. Moving over to a game that I loved last year, and I don't love it as much this year. But we have Western Kentucky and Indiana here. Indiana is favored by 6.5 with a 61.5 total. I do like the total, and I do like the spread here. I think Austin Reed's in play. This is his toughest test so far, and I think he's priced appropriately here. I don't think he will necessarily blow up, but there is the opportunity for him to. Connor Bazelak here, he had that big week, week one against Illinois, and still didn't do too much with it. They're running the ball into the end zone, which is something that really hurts his value. If he could get those passing touchdowns, he could get up there. So I might have a little bit of him in GPPs, but I don't love him without those passing touchdowns. Play I really love is Jivers. He has 35 carries over the two games. Really went off against Idaho. They're going to let him carry it. He really struggled against Illinois, still got into the end zone. They're targeting him. Western Kentucky is not Illinois. They cannot tackle. Um, this will be a really nice spot for him if he's going to get 15 to 20 carries. And he's a nice price, nice mid-price running back here. And then moving over to wide receiver, I think you want your normal collection of Western Kentucky receivers mixed in there. Corley's too expensive, but I still might have a few shares of him. He had that 3-touchdown game. He's always a risk to go off like that. David Davis, again, too cheap. He is the leading receiver here, leading in targets. Has 17 targets through the 2 games. Yeah, I mean, he's cash play. He's a GPP play. It's a really nice play. Right there with him, though, is Cam Camper, who has 28 targets through 2 games. Somehow he only has 15 receptions on those 28 targets, so has not been too efficient. But I really want to have a piece of Camper here in a game that I think that also could shoot out and could have a lot of points in it. That's kind of the main places I'm looking at. Might have a few other pieces of these Western Kentucky wide receivers if they're going to throw it 50 times. But yeah, it's kind of where I'm at. Where are you looking?
Yeah, I think Reed's in play, probably not touching Basilak. Reed's close to 11,000 on FanDuel, so I'm not looking to go there a ton. I agree with Shivers. I think he's basically cash viable. I mean, the running back position there's really thinned out. They had a few guys transfer out of IU. And then at receiver, I like Camper a lot. Matthews is a good player too, but he's just a lot more expensive on both sites. And yeah, Dawood Davis is probably the guy I'd look at from Western Kentucky, but I think there's better value spots. But he's decent in that range.
Nope, I agree completely. Yeah, so yeah, another game. Now we're going to move to some games that I think you'll have a few pieces and not quite as fun. We have Cincy traveling to Miami, Ohio. Cincinnati's look decent this year. Obviously, they're not the same team as last year. I'm kind of still waiting to see a lot of pieces of it, how it's going to play out. Kind of fading the quarter. I'm fading Miami, Ohio here personally. I don't think they can really keep up with Cincinnati and don't love where they are. I do think we will be seeing a lot of them and playing a lot of them once Maxon gets here, but not this week. Going over to running back, place I'm kind of looking for value is going down here to Charles McClelland. He was the leading running back last week in terms of carries. Still only had 10. He's not someone I'm going to have a lot of, but they're rotating this, running back core so much that I don't think I'll have, a few shares of him in GPP just as a pump play. Over wide receiver, the one piece of this game I think I'll really get some of is Tyler Scott. In a tight game week 1 against Arkansas, he had 12 targets. They really tried to get him the ball. They didn't need to last week. They played, I believe, Kennesaw State, so FCS school. And I think here this will be a little bit tighter game. Don't think it'll be worth a ton, but total here is 51, and Cincy is favored by 22 points. But I do think Scott could have 8-10 targets here and could be a decent play. What about you? What are you thinking?
Yeah, it's tough with Miami, Ohio. I actually like this team a lot and bet into some of their win totals and conference odds. The big news for Miami, Ohio is that Brett Gabbert is out, so they're using Avion Smith as the starter. He's kind of like a athlete playing quarterback. So the passing game's going to be downgraded for the time being. Otherwise, I could see Bryant maybe, but yeah, not a great game for DFS.
No, there's just not a lot there. Another game that is really going to be interesting to me, and It's going to be a guessing game. I think everything in here is a GPP play only. So last week, UCLA kind of sat everybody or played them barely any. Last week they had Alcorn State, I believe, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson got 11 passes. Charbonnet didn't play at all. A lot of their receivers played like a quarter. This week they do at least have an FBS school in South Alabama. So they're FCS, aren't they? They're
No, they're in
are they in Conference USA now?
They're
or
in
Sun Belt?
Yeah, I think they're in the Sun Belt still.
Yeah, but I mean, this game actually has a closer spread than I thought it would. So the total is 59, and UCLA is only favored by 16 points, which means I do think you're going to see everybody in this game and have to play most, if not all, of the game. GTR, so I'm going to go under the assumption that they're playing. They said no one was hurt. It was just coach's choice. So DTR, I think, is a great price here. Has 30, 40-point upside. Has a nice floor. I think he's a decent cash play here at this price. He's not too expensive. Going over to running back, Charbonnet is way too cheap here. There's no reason he should be under 7K. He's sitting here at 6,300. I think he is a smash spot, smash cash play here, and could really go off for GPPs as well. Over wide receiver, a few places I want to look. Casimir Allen in week 1 when they were, kept their starters in most of the game, had 13 targets. Even last week had 5 targets in a little over a quarter. So I think he's a clear wide receiver 1, not too expensive. The only place I really want to look on South Alabama is Jalen Wayne. Had 15 targets last week, really went off. They're going to be playing from behind, I think, from the beginning. I think Wayne could be a guy that could go off here and might not be too highly owned with the price tag where it is for a team that it's perceived wouldn't be as good. Where are you looking here?
Yeah, I agree. I think UCLA can score as many points as any team on the slate, so I don't mind running DTR and Charbonnet together.
Okay.
I think, yeah, it's a smash price for Charbonnet. Allen is very fair. He's a really good player, and that's probably as far as I'll go. But yeah, I mean, those three you don't really need to search for value with the pricing on those three.
No, I don't hate it at all. Moving on over, we have Cal at Notre Dame. Total here is 41, really bad total. Notre Dame's favored by 11. We have new quarterback for Notre Dame. We have Drew Pine starting. He's dirt cheap here. That being said, I don't love him. I don't think I would love it if Buckner was 5,300 here until we kind of see what that offense can do if they can get going. I'm personally fading Cal this week. I do think Notre Dame comes to play. I think it's on their defense more than their offense. Personally, I'll get straight to the point with them. I'm going to probably fade everyone except for Michael Meyer, who I do think is fairly priced this week. He's not too cheap like he was last week. So I'll have a piece of him in GPPs, but nothing I'm going crazy on. I do think they'll lean on him more with Pine under center. I think they'll have to just to get him. He's kind of the comfort blanket. But yeah, that's all I really want to touch here. Where are you looking, Aaron?
So my favorite play in this game is Jaden Odd at running back. Cal's kind of built their offense around him so far. So, and he's done well. I mean, they haven't. UNLV's they had a close game, so, but he's been really good for them. I think he's a good play, like flex RB3 kind of play.
I don't hate that.
Yeah, the game's pretty ugly, and the total is 40. So probably.
I mean,
not
yeah, it's
these guys.
It's a 26-16 implied game, so you've got an NFL style game here, and it's hard when there's so many higher total games. Even this next game doesn't have a higher total, but Penn State at Auburn. Penn State's favored by 2. Total's 47. So it's not a huge total, but it is closer. It's supposed to be close. And there are a few spots I like here just with their prices and value. Not a Sean Clifford, I like his price. I hate that I like his price because I don't love this matchup, but I do think in GPPs he's worth throwing in there. So you can pay up elsewhere. You can pay up and get those expensive, running backs. You can pay up for some more expensive, quarterbacks if you want them in your lineups. And yeah, I mean, I think he could do decent. Last year he had 280 yards and 2 touchdowns in this matchup. I do think Auburn has a little bit better defense and Penn State has a little bit worse offense this year. Their running game's about the same and their receivers aren't as good. But I do, 5,600, it's hard to turn in that blind eye there. Running back, I'm not touching a Penn State running back until they can figure out what they want to do because until they can, I can't. Tank Bigsby, I think, is definitely in play. 5,600, not too expensive. He actually just got an $1,800 reduction here from last week, and he had 18 fantasy points last week. If you give me 18 fantasy points at this price, I will take it every day. That 3x is nice. I think he definitely, he has 2 touchdown upside any game he's in, and he's their lead back for sure. Going over to wide receiver, I don't know why they haven't figured out that Tinsley is better than Parker Washington, but they haven't. Tinsley's getting closer to a fair price. I do think he has Jahan Dotson upside and will start getting more targets like that once Penn State gets into Big Ten play. But under 6K, I think he's a fair play. I think he's decent in all formats. He had, I think, 12 targets that first week game against Purdue that was close, and they didn't really do as much last week against Ohio in a blowout. But yeah, I mean, I like him. I think Lambert Smith is still a punt play. I'm not on Parker Washington in that slot role. I just don't love that role in that offense. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm sitting at for this game. What about you? What are you thinking, Aaron?
Yeah, quarterback's tough. I keep wondering how much when they'll turn to Aller, the Penn State's freshman quarterback. So I don't mind like 10% Clifford or something like that, but it's kind of buyer beware with him.
Yes, for sure.
Running back Singleton's the best, but it's still a little crowded there. Allen can play too, so that part's hard. Hunter's interesting. He's actually leading. He's either leading the team or the SEC in scoring. He has 4 touchdowns already.
Yeah, but he got a lot of those touchdowns at the end of that week 1 game. Yeah.
So I don't know. I'd probably Bigsby or nothing, and then Tinsley at receiver.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. And I mean, Auburn had that rough game and tough game last week against San Jose State. So, I mean, it's not the best. These aren't the best teams that they used to be 5 or 10 years ago. But it's still, I think, a fun game, and there's some value to be had there. I'm going over to Ole Miss at Georgia Tech. This is an interesting game to me. Ole Miss is favored by 16.5 here. They are refusing to name a starting quarterback, but everyone thinks that Jackson Dart is going to start, including DraftKings. It's priced that way. He's an interesting for me. He had a really rough week 1. Altmaier got hurt last week. Dart came in and had a really good performance coming in for that. In this matchup, I do think it's a decent matchup. We saw what a good quarterback could do against Georgia Tech at the end of that Clemson game when Cade Klubnik came in and tore him apart. I don't think TJ is a good quarterback, so it's hard to see for that. But yeah, going over to running back. I'm on Jackson Dart for GPPs, but we need to watch for news. Zach Evans is interesting at 6,500 for me. He got 20 carries that week 1 in their close game. Didn't have to do as much last week, but I do think he is in play here. Another play that I'm value play is Quinton Judkins, excuse me. He has 24 carries over the 2 games. Seems like their number 2. He's getting in there before Ulysses Bentley's, who everyone thought would be their number 2 coming over from SMU. Has had some nice averages too in each of their games. And destroying Central Arkansas. And yeah, if he's going to be their number 2 at 3,500 in this offense, I really, really do like that. Even if he's just getting 10 carries a game. Going over to wide receiver, few places I want to look here. Jonathan Mingo was really good last year. I think he needs to get it going again, but it is this could be a get right spot for him. A value play that I am kind of looking at here is coming down to Michael Trigg. He leads the team in targets. Has 13 targets for this team. He's their tight end, so they're going underneath. But this is a slate that I think you do need to find some value somewhere, and different places. I think there's a lot of obvious places for value, and I think he's a great GPP piece. He's going to get 5 to 8 targets a week at 3,400. He's getting some red zone targets. They haven't played anyone great at all, but he had 3 touchdowns against Central Arkansas, and he got these targets in the middle of the game. It wasn't all like at the end. They mixed them in. He had them with each quarterback, so it wasn't like he just had them with Dart, just had them with Altmaier. So I think he's going to be a solid part of this offense. Where are you looking at this game?
Yeah, mostly at the skill players. I do agree on Judkins. Lane Kiffin's done a good job using multiple backs. So he's interesting. I do like the Trig call a lot. So Trig came over with Dart from USC to Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
So they have that connection going. So I think that's a good call. I was hoping Jalen Robinson would do more in this offense, but we haven't seen that yet.
No.
That's mostly it for me. EJ Jenkins, that's not terrible. What did he do last game? Because I know he had a few big moments versus Clemson, but yeah. So if he has I don't know, he's a big guy, interesting for like GPPs, but no one I'm crazy about.
No, for sure. I think this Ole Miss team kind of will transform if Jackson Dart gets a start and kind of start figuring out their identity where they haven't gotten to yet, which is one thing I don't like about these quarterback competitions that they like to do.
Yeah.
Because I think it takes a few weeks for him to get into that rhythm. Moving over to another interesting game, Vanderbilt at NIU. Vanderbilt was the darling team of college football until last week when they couldn't do anything. Over here, quarterback Mike Wright. This week they decided to price up, which I don't know what DraftKings is doing. He was playing great, had 1 point last week, and now they priced him up. But that's DraftKings. Rocky Lombardi, I don't hate here. He hadn't had to do a lot this year, but I think he'll have to do a little bit more. I'll probably wait to play him a lot more once we get into that Maxion slate. But he's a decent quarterback. Again, I don't, Ray Davis has had some decent weeks. I don't love this price for him. I don't like them pricing him up another 1,100 here. This is a game, actually, game total here is 58.5, and Northern Illinois is favored here by 3.5. So yeah, I think it's going to be a close game. Plays where I'm going at running back, I'd much rather go to Ontario Brown. 20 carries last week and a really close loss to Tulsa. Didn't get it. Got 1 touchdown, didn't get a ton of yards with it. But if you're giving me 20 carries against any team, I will take it at 5,500. Especially on this slate without a ton of value with players that get a ton of touches at running back. Harrison Whaley, after they kind of had equal footing week 1, really tailed off last week. That's something to watch as well. I'm not going to pay 5,200 after he had 5 carries to 20 for Harrison Brown or to Ontario Brown. But yeah, that is something that I think I will have a piece of. Vanderbilt had issues with the running game a little bit last week. And then going over to wide receiver, there's not a ton I love here either. Cole Tucker is way too expensive for me. He does have upside, but he's too expensive. Um, if Vanderbilt can figure out how to throw the ball and do anything normally, I might. We know these guys have upside. Will Shepard did have a good game last week, got in the end zone, has 3 touchdowns on the year. So I don't hate that play. But again, without knowing what's going to happen at quarterback here, they said that Mike Wright's going to start, but I don't know what that means after watching him last week. Where are you on this, Aaron?
Yeah, I agree with Brown is the best play in this game. It's really hard. Ray Davis had a nice game last week, so if they can't pass, then he'll be a great play. But yeah, it's not a great game.
Yeah, I mean it's not the best fantasy game. Going over to BYU and Oregon. I'm going to move over here. Total here is 57.5. Oregon's favored by 3.5. Stayed up late last week, watched that BYU Baylor game. Was a really good game. Jaron Hall actually looked really good, even though he was missing his top 2 receivers, which impressed me. Sitting here at 6,700, I think it's a great price, to play him in. Especially if either of his receivers come back, I love it. But either way, I think he is in play for GPPs for sure, and possibly cash play if you really wanted to go there. I don't like going to value quarterbacks on my class lineups personally, but I do think he is in play there. I'm not touching Bo Nix. I don't like to play Bo Nix in fantasy personally. Christopher Brooks is interesting. He's only had 13 carries each week, so I don't love him at this price and love him here. I do think he has upside if Katoa was ever to get hurt, but I think it kind of limits his upside. Lopini he has 9 and 10 carries each week. Doesn't do a ton, but is definitely a touchdown vulture and is getting some targets. So yeah, I mean it's kind of 1-2 punch. They're not on equal footing, but it's kind of a 60-40 split there. I like this. I like BYU's run defense. I think they have a very good run defense, and I don't love this kind of rotation they're doing at Oregon right now, and I kind of want to see them put it together against a good team. After we saw them, last week they blew out. Who did they play last week? Eastern Washington. After getting absolutely blown out, so it's kind of something I want to see them put together before I really go there. I want to see with Romney and especially Nakua what happens. If Nakua is good to go, I love him at this price. Like, if they're going to let him go, it is an ankle, so you need to watch it, make sure he's good to go. If he is, I'm just plugging him in and going. 4,400, he can't hurt you too much. And his upside after watching those handoffs and those end rounds that they did to him is immense. I mean, he just went off. And I think it's something that he reminds me a lot of McConkey, the way he's built as well. So it's something that Oregon really had trouble with week 1. Another place I love here, Roberts last week. If they are both out, Chase Roberts had 14 targets in that game. I watched him just eat Baylor alive, going down the field. They threw it to him over and over again. They priced him like he was not even there. 3,200. I will load up on him if he is going to be, one of the top receiving options in this offense in a close game. And especially to stack him there with Jaron Hall under 10K for those two guys, I love it. What about you? Where are you looking at, Aaron?
Yeah, Christopher Brooks is someone I'm eyeing versus Oregon. Oregon gave up a lot. I wrote in my notes they gave up 5 rushing TDs in 2 games to Tavion Thomas last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Brooks is too far off skill wise. So I like Brooks a lot. He's pretty cheap he's only 7,400 on FanDuel.
I like that.
And then yeah, same thing with the backs. I thought Cardwell would come on more this year, but I mean they've been blown out and had FCS games, so it's hard to get a true read of how they shake out. And then at receiver, I'm also on blinking out on his name, the 3,200 guy.
Chase Roberts.
Yeah, Chase Roberts.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's a good. I like that stack you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean I think a lot's dependent on what happens with Romney and Nakua. I have heard they were practicing. I heard they weren't practicing. I heard they were probable. I heard they might not play. I've heard one might play. So it's kind of one of those things we need to kind of wait and see what happens. Keep an eye on it. There's enough value here that you can plug some of them in, and as long as you're close to the computer, you can sub them out for those late games. Make sure you have a pivot ready. But yeah, I mean that's where we are there. I think the worst Power 5 team is in this game here. We have Minnesota playing against Colorado. Colorado's just been god awful. Total here is 46 with Minnesota getting being favored by 27 points, which is hard to do when the total's that low. There's honestly two places I'm going to go in this game, and only two places I really like. Give me all the Ibrahim. I know he's 9,400, but in two games, he has back-to-back 20-carry games, including last week over Western Illinois. They gave him 20 carries coming off of an Achilles. I have no idea why they did that, but if they're going to do that, I'm going to plug him in every week, and I'm just going to go. I don't know if they're trying to get him the Heisman and just bump up his stats or what, but at 9,400, I think he's great in cash, great in GPPs. Just run him. The other place I'm going is Trey Potts, his backup. His backup is a top 35 fantasy running back all across college fantasy this year. He has 10 and 17 carries in 2 weeks. He has 3 touchdowns on the year. He's 6,400 for backup quarterback or backup running back. Normally seems unheard of. Colorado, I believe, is giving up 7.9 yards per carry. It's historically bad through 2 games. And if if you're going to give me 10 carries, 79 yards and a touchdown at 6,400, that right there, get you up those 14 points. You're going to get them for cash. That's a great cash play. And there's not a ton, like I said, of those mid-price running backs on this slate. So that's the only two places I really want to hit on this game. What about you, Aaron? Where are you thinking? Anything you like?
Yeah, I just laughed to myself at we're gonna get in the domination station, we're gonna get the Zach Evans pricing error because they're both on the slate, so everyone's gonna be like, oh, is this right?
Yep.
Projection right. So don't play the Mississippi Zach Evans, not the Minnesota Zach Evans. But yeah, I agree about Potts. I like him a lot. He would start at most schools, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're both in play at their price points, and you don't want to touch the passing offenses right now for either school.
No, I mean there's not a lot here besides that. Last game of the day is Kansas against Houston. This is the 3rd week in a row we get Houston on a main slate. Kind of like it. Kind of like their team a lot. Like what they're doing. I don't hate. Watch that Kansas game last week. It just turned into a decent game. This is the total here is 57. Houston is at home and favored by 10 here. First place I want to go is Clayton Tune. Hasn't been as big as I thought he could be this year. Really struggled last week against Texas Tech. Kansas just gave up 360 yards to JT Daniels, who we saw struggle immensely against that Pitt defense. Kansas does not have a good defense. They do have a decent offense this year, which actually excites me for this game. Jalen Daniels, I think, is not a great play, but a decent play here. They're going to let him run. They're going to let him throw. Might go low owned with a lot of the other guys right there in that mid 6K price range. I think he's a decent play if you want to stack this game for sure. At running back, I'm going to probably fade both of these schools, both of these backfields. They're both in kind of a rotation. Brandon Campbell did kind of step up and has kind of taken the lead here a little bit. He did have, a touchdown last week. He's getting some targets, so he is somebody I am kind of interested in. They do like to bring in Henry a decent amount, and he was thought to be the start at the beginning of the year, with the starter actually out for the year, who is going to be amazing. Over for Kansas, Devin Neal seems to be the goal line back, at 10 carries, has 4 touchdowns on the year through 2 weeks, getting everything close to the goal line. After last year, he really kind of was a star in the backfield. They tried to work around him a lot more, and they're not doing that as much here. Highshaw has had 10 carries last week. I think he had like 5 in one drive alone, so it's not too big of a deal. But he is cutting into those carries, and they're throwing it a lot more this year. Over at wide receiver here, Dell's finally getting the respect he deserves. He is appropriately priced. Still think he's in play here. I think you have like a 15 to 18 point floor every week, and he has 30 to 40 point upside at least in this offense. And I do think he can go off eventually. I think he will go off in a game. Under that, Matthew Golden hadn't done as much as was thought. He was kind of the golden child, excuse the pun, coming in. Everyone thought he was going to have a big year, thought about in fantasy circles as well as U of H circles, but he has not had that yet. Manjack had a big week 1 against UTSA. Didn't do as much. I don't think did anything last week, but he is somebody they will look to from time to time. As far as Kansas wide receivers go, they kind of spread it out a ton, so it's really hard to get to one of them. So yeah, I mean, I think if you want to go and stack this game, you can put Jalen Daniels naked at the top if it's something you really want to do. Where are you looking here?
Yeah, I agree. I like both quarterbacks and Dell a lot. I think the other receivers are, you could hope for a blow-up game like Manjack or Golden in GPP, but other than that, just the quarterbacks and Dell, really.
Yep, I agree. It's kind of hard to pick your spots here, but I do think it might be a fun game. That Kansas U of H, who would have thought?
Yeah.
But yeah, that gets us to the end. That's the end of this DraftKings slate here. Do you have any? Tell me your favorite pick over on FanDuel this week.
Sure. So the night slate, which they have for both sites, the night slate games but that are also on FanDuel are pretty interesting. So Maryland SMU and Maryland SMU is a huge total in the 70s. So you can stack Talia Tagovailoa and Tanner Mordecai. Those offenses are really good. Rashee Rice, the receiver, he's really come on as a dominant receiver 1 for SMU. They used to spread it out with more guys, and now he's kind of the focal point there. I liked what I saw out of Donovan Smith for Texas Tech last week. They have an interesting game. They're 10-point underdogs in Raleigh against North Carolina State. So Smith's only 9K, just 400 more than last week. And if he has a clean game, he'll score into the 30s. And then the game in Seattle with MSU and Washington's pretty interesting. Michael Penix Jr. has transferred over there. So they have an interesting offense. They're passing a ton with Kalen DeBoer. And on the Michigan State side, Jalen Reed's questionable. So there's probably some receiver value on the night slate for Michigan State. So yeah, interesting night games on the main dual slate and on DraftKings for the night slate.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's going to be fun. A lot of fun games on there. Some interesting pricing. I took a peek at DraftKings and some interesting pricing for sure. If you want to get that, get all of our cheat sheets for those night slates. Main slates, we do the afternoon slate, the late night, we do everything here. We got slates for tomorrow. We have our domination station optimizer. Go in there and make all your lineups. We have all of our custom projections. Our main guy Keg does that, and yeah, just a ton to work around. Be sure to go over right now. Join DFS Army. Get in there with our new millionaire last week. Great week in NFL. Had several people get top 5, get several, tens of thousands of dollars as well in NFL. And we're doing great in all of our sports. NBA is coming up right around the corner. NHL is coming up. Doing well in soccer. So yeah, would love to have you over there. Thank you for your time, Aaron. It's been fun. Been another fun podcast. And yeah, I hope everybody has a great week 3 in college football fantasy.